Now, 2023 is different. Information is more accessible than it's ever been. And you have younger kids getting into the game. You have, people on TikTok, these 19-year-olds doing deals. You have these YouTubers. You have everyone kind of colliding in on this business model at the same time. And you're in this hot Florida market, which is not as hot as it once was.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Chris Naugle, and welcome back to the Money School Podcast, where we go anywhere that we want to go as long as it ties back to money and you taking back control of it. Today's guest is a very interesting one, not in an interesting industry, but an interesting path of how this podcast led. You see, well, I don't want to say his mentor, but his business partner, Jeremy, has been a friend of mine and also has gone through just about everything I've ever done. And that led right up to here. So today's episode it's going to be a lot of fun. But what we're going to really talk about, so you all know what you're going to learn here, we're going to talk heavily about real estate. We're going to talk about the changing dynamics right now, 2023. And actually today marks December of 2023, right before Christmas. So happy holidays and Merry Christmas to any of you, because when you're listening to this, you will have already probably had Christmas and Hanukkah and all those others. But I want to really kind of get into the changing environment that's happening in real estate right now. We're seeing it happen. Dan, my guest, is over in Florida, and he's seeing it happen. But we want to kind of talk about where it's going, but also how you can seize the opportunity in this changing dynamic. That is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to focus heavily on wholesale and wholesaling and all the things that come along with acquisitions, because this guy is a pro. And his whole organization has been doing this for the better part of a decade now. So get ready to listen to Dan and to him tell you all about how this works, because you're going to learn everything you need to know. What's up, Dan? Thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And I know we were talking earlier offline about the different companies. You have several different companies, but the main one is REI Freedom. And I love in that name that you have freedom. Can we just take a second just to talk about how has real estate helped you free up your life? I know you have a 3.5-year-old and you have a baby, basically a couple months old. Like, how is real estate and what you do freed you up time-wise to spend more time doing the things you love with your family?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I come from a background where I went to a small Bible college. I got a generic business degree. Coming out of school, I really didn't have a passion towards anything. I just knew I had to get a job. So I experienced the corporate world after I graduated. I moved out to Colorado. I love Colorado to death. Great place, fun, but not when you're working a mundane job that you're not really good at. And when I went out there, I learned really quickly that wasn't really the environment for me. You can make good money, there's benefits, if you will, but that whole traditional route wasn't for me. So my brother, Tom Kroll, who I thank to this day for getting me to start in real estate, he had me come out back to Florida. That's where I went to school, where I was growing up when I was like 12 to all the way through college. And I moved back out there with no guarantee of salary to work with him in his wholesaling business. And I'm not a natural salesperson. And I had to learn from the ground up how to sell, how to acquire off-market properties at a discount. How is that even possible? Why do people sell to investors versus list with realtors? And that freedom was really found in that when I learned to do that, I knew I can work on my own schedule. I can pick the transactions that work for me. You meet all these sellers, you look at all these houses, and you have the freedom to really enter into the transactions that you want to in this business. That's a really fun part. There's a deal that I'll do, but then I'll have a competitor. He wouldn't really be a good fit for that deal, or vice versa. I see a competitor take a deal down and purchase a property for investment. Like, I would never do that deal. But the really fun part about real estate investing, and particularly acquiring off-market properties when you're buying them, is it gives you the freedom on which deals you want to take on, which ones you don't, on your own time frame, on your own terms. That's the really fun, exciting part, I think, for when new people start out.
I love that. And that definitely is freedom. I know, folks, when you're listening to this podcast, any of the YouTube channels, including mine, everything that you're learning, especially if you're on the path to trying to get in a better financial place, build wealth, or whatever it is financially, like, just remember that money is solely being created in your life to create freedom. Nothing else. That's all that matters. Money equals freedom. That's it. So everything we're going to talk about here is real estate, but it takes money to do real estate, and the money you make in this real estate game buys you freedom. And freedom is time. The one resource in all of our lives that we can't make any more of, the one resource we can't get back. I just watched or just read this meme today, and Dan, I know this will hit home for you, but it was, there will come a day in all of your lives, they're talking to fathers more specifically, where your child will hold your hand and take you to play for the last time. Like, think about that. I mean, I've got a 3.5-year-old. You've got a 3.5-year-old. I mean, how many times does and you're 3.5-year-old, boy or girl? Girl. Perfect. So our daughters, on a common basis, and any of you listening, if you have kids, you know exactly what we're talking about. They come up, they grab your pinky. Sometimes it's your index finger, and they drag you and they say, play with me. Like, doesn't that just melt your heart? But how many times, Dan, and I want you to be honest, how many times has your daughter grabbed your hand, said, come play with me or play with me? And you're like, yes, after this text, after this email, after this, sweetie, I will in a little bit. I got to do this first. Like, how many times has that happened for you?
Oh yeah. More than I can count, more than I'd want to count. And it breaks your heart too, because then it's the worst feeling after the fact. But in the moment, you don't think about it, but after the fact, to your point, Chris, it's heartbreaking.
And that's the things that we can't get back, folks, because that time will come for all of us. And for many of you that you already had that time happen, where that was the last time your child grabbed your pinky and said, come play with me. And that is what we work so hard for, folks. So everything you're going to learn here from Dan about real estate, just remember, you're learning this to take back control of your time, which can only be done by taking back control of your money. So Dan, let's dive into your business. Now you're in Florida, which, by all accounts has been a really good real estate market. I mean, there's probably between Texas and Florida, and there's many other markets, but those two markets, like, you guys have just crushed it. I mean, since the pandemic, the market's gone straight up. I mean, partially because you guys have just a great governor, just good politics. And during the pandemic, they didn't make you guys wear the masks and push all the shit down your throat like they did here in New York and for some of you in California and other places. But what do you see happening right now in Florida that's changing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Before, when I started back in, I think it would have been, it's been about a decade, right? So we're looking at 2012 into 13. Back then, the market was coming out of one of the worst times in our history, as you know, so it was still recovering. So since I started, I'm one of those guys, even 10 years into it, Chris, that has never really seen a down market, because since I started, it's been up and to the right aggressively. Then you had the COVID bump that you talked about. Florida is the free state. Our policies were really attractive for people. So then we had that massive COVID bump, which people thought it would be opposite. It didn't. It went even higher, expedited growth. You would put a house in the market, even if it was a marginal deal, whether it was to your cash buyers list. And for those of you who don't know, if you're not buying a property, you're doing an assignment of contract, you put it out to a private buyers list, it would get eaten up in a heartbeat. Then for my rehabber friends, people that are actually buying deals with their own money or hard money, which I know you talk a lot about, you're taking the deal down and own it. You put it on that multiple listing service with a licensed agent. Bam, it's gone in a week, maybe 10 days. Even a marginal deal where, it was under 2 weeks. I was just talking to my accountant. He moved to Tennessee and he sold his personal residence. Wasn't a great deal. Like, he priced it very aggressively on the higher side. It still went in a week. I mean, just crazy. So our market, our population has become accustomed to this thing where you just put your house out, even for a not so great price, and it's gone within a week or two. Not the same way right now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just tell your viewers straight how it is. I have a property right now I've been sweating about. We took it down. We thought it was a really good deal. Brand new windows, impact hurricane windows, brand new roof, bells and whistles, new electrical, has all the bells and whistles you'd want, structurally sound, good street, good area, checks every box. And, it's been hanging around now for over 20 days. So, we're entering a time where things just aren't moving as aggressively, and you have to be better acquiring the property. And I say this about myself all the time. We always think we're smarter than we are. Hello, me first, right? So we always think we're more skilled than what we are. And it's never been a more important time to make sure that you're negotiating in that mindset on the front end, so you don't get yourself in a lot of trouble on the back end.
I think you said a lot there, and there's a lot of pieces that we could pull out. But one of the things that I think has happened is some folks have kind of mistaken like how smart or how educated or just how astute they are to something with just a good market. And I've seen this a lot in real estate, a lot of not so much wholesalers, but wholesalers in there, but flippers. I've met a lot of flippers that have never seen a down market that just think they can do no wrong. They think they're the best at it. They think that their skills at rehabbing and design and everything they do is like top notch. But really all it is they've just been part of the longest bull run in history and just a very unique market dynamic. And I think the same is true for wholesalers. But what's really unique about wholesaling is it's a business that if the operators are good at pivoting is very fast to pivot. Where flipping, like you're in a deal, things can change right underneath you in a flip, right? Things dynamics, everything can change, which literally can strip your profit. But in wholesaling, I was kind of laughing at you. You said what, 20 days you're sitting on a deal?
Yeah.
20 days. Like I'm laughing. Like, listen, I'm in New York, okay, in Buffalo, New York, upstate. 20 days would be a blessing. Like if we had a deal that was sitting for 20 days, we're like, all right, we're just getting there now. Come on, that 30-day number. And we should be able to find something between day 30 and 60 for you. You're sweating at 20 days, but that's probably the norm. And, I think just a lot of, people have just gotten used to like just this rapid fire being able to just move deals. So I don't know if that's the new norm, that we're going into, but it very well could be where we just got to wait. We got to understand that things are going to take a little bit longer. The economy's softening a little bit. And, I don't know, but let me ask you another question too. Like with your company, REI Freedom, and folks, check it out. Dan's got a great, Instagram page, and you can find him on there. Dan, real quick, like just tell everybody your Instagram page, because I was on there, and you guys got to go on and watch the podcast with Jeremy Beeland. It's an epic podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the Instagram REI Freedom Coach. We put a lot of great content, and I appreciate that, Chris. We also have the REI Freedom Facebook group where we give away everything for free. We try to do some type of live every day, either Jeremy or myself. I talk a lot about sales and acquisitions. That's sort of my superpower, my space where I have experience. Jeremy talks a lot about marketing. He talks a lot about systems and processes. We had Steve Richards on talking about KPIs. So we try to really stay in our lanes. Jeremy's super good at his space. I'm good at mine. And we put out a lot of valuable content absolutely free on that page. So it's called REI Freedom on Facebook, the private Facebook group.
I love it. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to that because I was scrolling through your stuff and I saw that interview with Jeremy and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the one we got to call out because that's an epic one. But, so in the wholesaling business, basically your superpower, if you will, is acquiring properties, pennies on the dollar is always what I like to say. You're basically buying off-market deals or on-market deals, but you're buying them at really reduced prices. Can you just talk a little bit about your superpower when it comes to how you guys make money and how you find these really good deals?
Absolutely. So yeah, back in 2013, going into 2015, I'm going to keep going back to this common theme. You can make a lot of mistakes and fall into a lot of good deals. There wasn't as much competition back then. TikTok wasn't even around. YouTube, of course, was, but there wasn't as many influencers. So especially in our market, we're like a B market. We're at St. Lucie, so it wasn't as blown up. So we were in the perfect market, the perfect time. Now you fast forward. So back then, first, you can get away with putting out direct mail. You have a formula there that works. If you send out 5,000 pieces of direct mail to sellers, little postcards or handwritten letters, that you can depend on a certain return. Same thing with pay-per-click, same thing with cold calling. Now, 2023 is different. Information is more accessible than it's ever been. And you have younger kids getting into the game. You have people on TikTok, these 19-year-olds doing deals. You have these YouTubers. You have everyone kind of colliding in on this business model at the same time. And you're in this hot Florida market, which is not as hot as it once was. So you have higher competition. You have a more savvy market that's going to marry. And suddenly you have become a better version of yourself to do deals. So to answer your question, Chris, how do we do that? Well, that's a two-part thing. So on the marketing side, smart marketing, we scaled back our marketing a lot because, again, going back to the theory that now you can't just put the money out there and depend on the return. You have to really get good at where your deals are coming from and go deeper rather than wide. So know where you're finding your business and go deep there with follow-up and consistency versus trying to spread yourself too thin, because that's not going to be as effective. Just for a real world example, I have a buddy that works pre-foreclosures, and he would rather touch every pre-foreclosure like 5 times and spend his money going deep in that well, because he knows how that market, how to solve those sellers' problems, versus doing pre-foreclosure, tax delinquency, code violation, water shutoff, whatever, any of these lists that people talk about. He'd rather go deep on one section that he's dominating than go wide. So that's part A, is to go deeper rather than wide. I'd rather do follow up more with less people than try to touch a million people once. Okay. So that's the part one on marketing. But on sales, we've really come up with a culture here at our team, being the friendly neighborhood buyer, that you can't just call sellers and, hey, are you selling your house? Or, I know you're in trouble. Do you want an offer? Everyone's doing that. So instead, going with part A in the marketing, we want to establish a really strong rapport, relationship, and trust with sellers by being strategic on how we talk with them. So, if I speak with the seller and they're not ready, I'm trying to understand their life situation, Chris, before I even understand anything about the house. Because unless we're connecting at that deeper level, that third level of rapport, I call it, first level is just getting to know them, right? B is just getting to know if they're selling and if you're even a viable option. And C is actually getting to know their situation, their pain, to see if you can actually help them alleviate that pain and that need in their life. So with our team, we preach this, that we're not there about the house. We're there for the person. We're there to get to know the person. Because unless you know them at that deep level, you really can't help them, and you're not going to build the brand the right way. So one part marketing smarter, 2 is a massive rapport building process with the people you're speaking with.
I really like that a lot. Now, let's kind of just do a rapid fire with a couple things that I always have thought were problematic with wholetailing, and flipping. And the first one of those is it is a transactional business, meaning you live and you die by the deal flow. So, if you stop or you take a vacation or you get ill or sick and you can't work, like, how do you mitigate those risks? So anybody watching this, I don't care if it's, somebody who's 19 looking at real estate saying, oh, I'm going to be a wholesaler. Like, how do you make sure that you don't create a job that you literally can't get yourself out of, because the second you do, your income shuts off, and once a luxury, now a necessity, that whole saying. So as you make more money, you take on more expenses, you buy nicer things. And in a transactional business, it's dangerous because you're always just one light switch away from a dramatic change in your life. How do you mitigate against that in your business?
I love how you brought this up, because not a lot of people do. They really don't talk about how transactional in nature wholesaling and even real estate investing is. They kind of beat around the bush on it and talk about all the freedom, talk about the money, but they don't actually talk about that. If you stop, the business stops. It's extremely difficult to get around that. I'll just be honest. This is, if you're going to talk about scalability, building a business you can sell, like a sellable business, something where there's really clear lines of redundancy to where you can build that out. It's actually not a great business for that, in my opinion. So even some of my best friends that make a lot of money in this business have big teams. They find that there's seasons where there's ebbs and flows, and that's not always the case for other business models. So there's ways you can augment it. One of the things I say is do bigger deals and less deals. So if you do bigger deals and you build your model to do lesser but bigger deals, you may not need that redundancy as much, because if you're doing a deal a quarter and your marketing is low and those deals are $50,000 to $70,000, you might have a spread you're really happy with less marketing dollars, less overhead, less, not as big of a team, and you don't need it 5 deals a month. However, if you are having a high marketing budget, it's going to force you to have to do the 5 to 7 deals a month, and they may only be, 15 to 20 grand a piece, and that changes market to market. So I don't want to name a number, but just say 15 to 20 was considered a moderate or a smaller size deal. then yes, you're going to have team members, and you have to build redundancy. You have to have team members that know other people's responsibilities, multiple VAs that know how to pull marketing lists. So marketing is always going out. Even periods where you're not bringing in revenue, marketing should still be going out. So you have to have multiple people that know how to pull lists, know how to go to the county clerk to pull lists directly from the city. That's just an example there. Acquisition specialists, people to actually go out to meet with sellers. You have to have multiple people to do that. In Florida, we have myself. We also have Patrick, who's another acquisition specialist. We also have somebody else who's more of an ISA role, who's over the phone. For those of you who don't know what that is, just somebody to set up our in-person people on appointments. So in order to not have those ebbs and flows, you need to at least have two people that know every task. And that becomes challenging when you're talking about, Chris, like you mentioned, the acquisition specialists, the people that actually go out and do the work, meet with the sellers, because a lot of those skills are built over several months, several years. So if two go down or one goes down, you have to bring in someone and train. It could take months. So there are certain bottlenecks in this business that we face that are very real. I shouldn't talk on a business that I don't have experience with. Amazon drop shipping, flavor of the month. There are certain systems you can build there that are more technical, where you may not need that sales specialist as much. So anytime you have to have a belly-to-belly salesperson, or even if someone over the phone, a closer, it always gets a little tedious because closing is hard. And even somebody like me who's not naturally gifted at that, I had to learn. It took me years to be where I am now, and I'm still learning. So there are some challenges there. You're absolutely right.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up. So I was just at a mastermind, boardroom mastermind, and, Steve Richards was out there, but, you do these hot seats where everybody goes around and they talk about their business. And obviously it's a lot of wholesalers in that, because Kent, obviously wrote Reverse Wholesaling. And I listened to him, and, I'm always like the black sheep in the room, right? Because I'm not a wholesaler. I'm not a flipper anymore. I've sold most of my rental portfolio off. I'm just the bank. I just lend. And when all the folks are saying, and they're throwing up these big numbers and all these fancy things, but a lot of them right now, we're saying, things are tough. Like, we're not getting the dollar, our marketing dollars aren't going as far. We're not getting as many good leads, or we're getting a bunch of leads and they're just not working out, and we're burning money. What do we do? And I always come back to this, and I'm going to ask you about this. With wholesalers, you can make a ton of money. I mean, the lowest guy in that room at that mastermind was doing $3 million. That was the lowest. So $3 million, I mean, that was his gross. So let's just say he's making $200,000-$300,000 a year, which I think is about what he was doing. One thing I've found that with most real estate investors, especially younger ones, is that when they make that kind of money, whether it's $200,000 or $1 million a year, they spend that much money. They spend it on additional marketing. They spend it on just a higher lifestyle. Very few of them, when you really peel the onion back, are actually saving money to create a passive income. And even when they do create a passive income, usually it's in real estate. They go from one aspect of real estate and they start buying assets and rentals, which creates a whole nother job and a whole new set of problems. And I always ask them, I say, why don't you just become the bank? Why don't you just save some money and then learn how, very simple to learn how to be the bank and lend money, and find some of the folks that you work with, maybe some of the folks that you wholesale properties to, and maybe pick the good ones and start lending money to them at 12 or 15%. They got to get money somewhere. So you're finding the deal, and then you could lend them the money on the deal. So you've kind of controlled two, but now you got one, which is transactional, one just paychecks show up every day in the mail, right? So it's very little work. So I haven't been able to bridge why wholesalers and real estate investors, for that matter, haven't really started to move more into truly passive. I mean, wholesalers, like you mentioned, I love that you mentioned the Amazon. A lot of times I hear that they're going into this business that they don't even know, like, or understand. They have no knowledge of it. They're like, oh, some guy said I'll make a bunch of money every month. Like, you don't even know this business, but you know the real estate business. You know a good deal from a bad deal, which means you're halfway, if not 3/4 of the way there for being a lender, because you already have engineered the perfect scenario. So, like, just take it home. Otherwise, they're going to go to a hard money lender or another private lender, and they're going to pay them every single month. Like, you should be that person getting the check. Like, what are your thoughts on why wholesalers haven't transitioned to understanding this is transactional, the freedom can be short-lived with changes, and I need to figure out a way to create a passive income?
You're preaching the choir here, Chris. I love hard money lending. That's what I do. That's my main source of income other than the business, is actually just lending my money out and keeping it out. Man, if I could find bigger deals, my goal this year is to find bigger deals. I don't have to keep pulling it out. I can keep it in there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But yeah, to your point, I don't know why they don't do it. I think that a lot of these guys, and this includes me, some of us don't come from a background where we actually learned those skill sets. We haven't, and I just talked about this on a live today, of having to become a better, more mature version of yourself in this business, but in other areas too. A lot of us have come from other industries where maybe, who knows, they sold solar, or they sold, my brother Todd Toback, who's awesome too, and I've learned a lot from him. He did pharmaceutical sales. I was in supply chain in Colorado. So, some of us have come from backgrounds where we haven't even really learned the fundamentals with money, but we're good salespeople. We learn to sell. So we're still kind of just getting the cash grab. We're only like making money, but we're not actually being savvy with that cash. So to your point, a lot of people just don't have a stockpile of cash. They spend it. Maybe they're even putting it in bad deals. Maybe they're putting it in deals that are just aren't smart. Like you just said, maybe they're investing in friends' businesses, or maybe they thought the storage stuff, the storage units was an automatic and it's not difficult. So they just shove money in. So there's a lot of examples, but I think it's a lack of education. I don't think there's a lot of people that talk about that stewardship piece. And if there is, it might be a guy that's doing it at a really high level, like Dave Ramsey, which teaches you a lot of the building blocks. But then when you kind of graduate from those building blocks, just not that next level of maturity, which I love Dave Ramsey. He's one of my favorites, but there's a certain population that he's helping. But then after that, there's this other leg that we really maybe don't have education on all the way. So, and they're spending all their time being transactional. They're not even having the time to really educate themselves on it.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey, I've always liked him, and I love to hate Dave Ramsey. Dave, is very good at what he does of building those building blocks, taking somebody that's going paycheck to paycheck, showing them freedom from debts. But where Dave is really terrible is once he gets somebody into his infrastructure, his baby steps infrastructure. I always say to people, I'm like, Dave is kind of like, a bird hits your window and it breaks its wing. You pick the bird up, you put it in the cage, you feed it, you nurture it. The bird gets well. Now the bird is ready to go fly, and Dave doesn't let you out of the cage. And that's, I think, one of the problems a lot of people get in. They get in a situation working with someone, and we'll pick on Dave Ramsey here, and then they just don't know how to get out, or they just can't find the door to get out of that situation. And that happens with financial advisors. That happens on every level when it comes to money. But I think a lot of times people just need to learn the simple, basic fundamentals about money. I mean, this is all I do every day, day in and day out. But let me just give everyone watching this a really good book that all of you should read, especially wholesalers, because like you said, they just don't know how to save, or they haven't learned that. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a very old book. Okay. But that book talks about the 7 laws of gold. Now, let me reframe that. I've recreated it and created it into 6 laws of wealth, but just read that book. Read it a couple of times. You can listen to the audiobook in 3 hours. Follow those principles that held true all the way back to the times of Babylon and have held true straight through to today, and apply those in your life. There's simple things like save 10% of the money you make. Make sure that money goes to work for you when you save it. So don't just leave it in a bank or leave it somewhere. Take that money and send it out to work for you. Protect your wealth. Don't get greedy. Be realistic. Always give. Focus on giving more and create a legacy. Those are the basic fundamentals. And if you can just apply those, I think you can kind of skirt over some of that issue that you were talking about, Dan. But Dan, I want to just kind of pivot real quick. I want to go into the other part of your business, not the coaching part yet, but the wholesaling part. I've always loved wholesaling. I think it's a really great business. I don't think it's a business that's going to really have too many issues going into this next phase, this downward phase in markets. So can you just talk a little bit about what your wholesaling division has done and what it is? And I don't know, any advice you can give people on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a slogan when it comes to our deals and our off-market properties. we want to try to make good deals, really great deals. If we have a good deal, that would be a good wholesale deal. Like if we're going to have, a deal that we take down and we have a cash buyers list, that's going to produce maybe a certain margin. Let's just call it $20,000 in profit. But if we just buy that property, either get the funds or use our funds to actually buy it and own it, and then vacate it of tenants or, of clutter, just make it clean, make it empty and presentable and accessible. And we put it right back on the multiple listing service, which is accessible to everyone with an agent. And we can get a substantially higher profit and just wait a little bit more, have a little more delayed gratification. Then we like what's called, like Chris said, wholetailing, because you get more revenue and you get more juice from the same squeeze than you would do wholesale, but you don't quite have the long, lengthy timeline of rehab and of flips, fix and flip traditionally, and you don't have the same type of risk and exposure that you have there. So it's a really nice, happy medium for those. Maybe you've been in business a little while and you want to try to graduate and add, again, like we talked about earlier, you make more money per deal. So you don't have this pressure to do all these multiple deals. You can do fewer, better deals. So really important. Chris is the expert on the cash, so I'll leave that to him. But finding the money is really important there. Knowing how to find the money to actually take him down if you don't have the cash stored up yourself is huge there. But on the other end of it, when you're actually putting them out, that timeline helps because it doesn't need to be something you own for 90 days necessarily. It could if it's not a great deal, but if it's a good deal, you can buy it, clean it out, put it back on the MLS within a week. A lot of times we do. And it's been some of our best deals to date are in that wholesale criteria, not actually the wholesale. We've done some great wholesales, but in that wholesale realm, those were those $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 net profits can come from because you don't have any overhead for the rehab, maybe besides cleaning fees.
I love that. And, a lot of folks listening right now, it might be you, you're thinking, oh, I'd love to wholesale, but I don't have the money, or I don't know people that have money. Well, I've got a solution. Shameless plug, privatemoneyclub.com. It is the largest community of private lenders. And I mean private lenders like me and Dan and just individuals that want to lend on your deals. So go on there, create a profile. There's no cost. It's just like any other social site. Post your deals in the forum, put your deals in the deal page, become a premier member. That's where all the money is. To date, there's been well over $100 million funded on that. The site's only a couple of years old and there's over 6,000 members. So get into privatemoneyclub.com if you need money. Thanks, Dan, for opening the door. Let me get a shameless plug in there. Let's continue on. So we've covered transactional aspects of the business. We've covered first wholesaling and some of the issues that come along with wholesaling and some of the changing dynamics that have created some pressures in that industry, like, where everything doesn't work anymore. So I love how you've gone into the bigger deals with less deals and less marketing. It's really smart. Then we talked about wholetailing, which are the big, pops. So you can make good net profits, but it takes a little more energy. You got to be able to find and source the money to take the deals down. But then the third pillar of what you do is the coaching side. Can we just go into that? Now, this is something that a lot of people will probably have some hate on because this is just an area where everybody loves to hate. Oh, they're just trying to sell some coaching thing. But like, how did you learn to do what you're doing and to make the money you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm really blessed and fortunate to have a lot of great people around me. And I wouldn't be where I'm at without those people. So when I was 19, I want to say, I went to my very first mastermind group with my brother, Todd Toback. He dragged me over there. I didn't really want to go. I flew out to California and I went to a group called Collective Genius, Jason Medley's group. Yep. And, I still keep in touch with some of those guys from that group and gals from that group all the time. And they were this environment of people where, they were all making really good money, had businesses, had some of them had really large teams. They were really generous with their knowledge and generous with their time. And even after the group ended, they were never hesitant to reach out to help. So I was like, man, this is really cool. There's this environment where you could actually go in and learn, and everyone's just there with a really abundance mindset. No one's there guarding or kind of like, shelled up with their information, trying to have this like scarcity play. Everyone's just giving, and there was a conducive environment to do that. So it's really inspiring, and it encouraged me to go down that path of learning. And in that journey, I've had to learn from a lot of people that are smarter than me. Some of those people were really good salespeople. Some of those people, my good buddy here that I have in my area, Josh, he's a rehabber, and I learned a lot from him on that rehab side. There's been agents, because I'm not licensed, agents to really show me kind of that boring part of listings that I don't want to know about, but I learned from them. So you have all these people that have been generous with me. So it's compelling because you're like, man, at some point I want to share what I know. So just in the last few months, we opened up the REI Freedom Facebook group. And that is really something that I've become passionate about, because in that group, it's just free information. In the REI Freedom Facebook group, we just do the lives. We have free discussion about what's working, what's not working, have some fun with it. People ask questions in the threads. It's only, I think, up to 700 and something people, but it's kind of more of an intimate setting. But it's been really nice to be able to have that environment that's just dedicated to help those folks out who want to be there. We made it private for a reason, just because we wanted that a little bit of a barrier for people just to sign up and say, hey, listen, I want to be here. I want to get the information, actually use it. And it's been a nice platform to do that. So we have the REI Freedom group. The other side, though, of the coaching is really good because we have our group coaching that is something that is paid for, right? And with the group coaching, it's a group that just, again, puts all their deals in there. We talk about the struggles on particular deals, obstacles on particular deals, on the acquisition side. We talk about marketing struggles. And, I coach on sales, I coach on acquisitions, but my favorite part of the group is how everyone in there shares about their deals, and other students are inspiring other students in certain aspects. And whether it was the masterminds I attended, whether it's the group that you mentioned with like the hard money people coming together, the power's in the community. It's never really, the coach is never the end all be all. It's about the environment. So that's the part I get really excited about, is the environment we're building, and the people that I'm meeting along the way has been really, really neat as well. So.
Dan, you said something in there, and I love, a lot of times when I open the door for people on a podcast about coaching, they just go right in like, it's a paid coaching, but you went right to the free stuff. And, back long time ago when I was broke as a joke, trying to find my way and just stumbling, I landed at a mastermind. And I remember the guy that was putting the mastermind on, his name was Greg Reed. And I said to him, Greg, give me the best advice you can give. He put his hand on my shoulder. He leaned into me and he said, give your best stuff away for free. Now, that did not sound like the best advice that I needed at that time, but it has served me so well because I give everything away for free. And I love that you're doing that with this REI Freedom Facebook page, because it just giving is the ultimate. And it always comes back to you, but you just keep giving and giving and giving, and people will come to you. And this is probably how you started doing the paid coaching group, is people are coming to you saying, hey, how do I work with you at a different, higher level? How do I get more access to you? And you're like, oh, okay, well, we'll do this group coaching and then one-on-one coaching. And that's how it goes. That's the proper flow of how a good coaching company happens, because it's organic. And that way people don't feel like they're being sold. They feel like they're actually getting helped. And that's exactly what I love. You did that. And there's a lot of people that will start in real estate, and then all of a sudden they'll very quickly see, oh, I can just start coaching and make more money. And then they stop doing real estate. Like, how can you be a good coach if you're not in the game doing what you're coaching on? You can't. So I love that you did that. And thanks for sharing that. Now, as we kind of get to the tail end of this, I want to go into a little bit of forecasting. And I know offline we talked, and this might not be your lane, but you're seeing it firsthand. In the next couple of years, specifically 2024, going into an election year, there's wars happening. Like, who knows what's going to happen? What do you see happening to the price of real estate in the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, that's always such a hard question to answer. And, I always say, like, with my own experience, like 10 years, man, there's so many other people that have so much more experience than I do in changing markets. But from really good friends of mine who I know that I do trust, because they've been in it since even before 2000, and they've seen those different market cycles. They've had some more exposure to it in different markets. They certainly, if they had to bet, they don't think it would ever be something catastrophic in the next 2 years. I'm just going to say 2 years. It's not the same as it was back in 04 to 08. There was different things going on back then. And I was just a kid, so I don't know even too much about everything back then. But a lot of my colleagues who I work really closely with, I have really good trust and relationship with, they say it's different than that time period. So I trust that. However, I don't think that, I think we're definitely out of that post-COVID boom. And I think that, even normalcy in the market, especially in markets that really benefited from that spike, that's not going to be the new normal. So again, it's going to be really imperative that you enter every negotiation with the servant's heart. But on the other end of it, with sellers, you have to also don't be afraid to press a little bit on the price. And, hey, listen, we have increased risk now. Some of our properties are sitting. And just the other day, that was a conversation. I'm very open with my sellers. I don't hold back. Very honest with them. I say, listen, this is what I'm seeing, and I actually buy property. I'm a real buyer. This is one of those friendly neighborhood moments again, where I'm just, hey, I own the home 2 blocks down. This is what that's doing. This is why it can't be on the price here on this house. Do you understand? Are we kind of singing the same tune here? And it actually becomes something that you can have work in your favor, something that this changing market condition, it's really easy to get down about it. Oh, the times where it's completely up and to the right are over. But I would argue that it's going to help you, because if you're really looking for a good deal, you could, as long as you can utilize the information right with your sellers and it comes off honest and authentic, it's something to where you can negotiate better deals long term with it. And whether you're buying and holding in certain markets or buying flips, wholesaling, whatever it is, you can utilize that new information to get better deals and negotiate stronger. So my prediction is that you're going to have to become a better negotiator. You're going to have to become a better salesperson. You're going to have that art of conveying information in a better spot. But I don't think I'd be scared about it. I think that as long as you just make sure that you're getting it at a reduced price and taking into account recent comps in the last 30 days rather than maybe 90 days, that might inflate it artificially. I think you'll protect yourself and hedge your bet a little bit.
Wow, well said. I think when I look at the real estate landscape and I look at what's going on, I think wholesalers are the ones that stand to benefit the most from the changing environment, the changing market prices of real estate. And the fact that, listen, real estate probably isn't going to push to new highs. It's probably actually going to start pushing down, especially in certain parts of the market or the country, in different markets where it's highly appreciated. Florida being one of those, which is why you're feeling it. And then you got Arizona and Utah. All those markets right now are seeing major compression in pricing, and it's going to continue. But I think in yours, like just becoming a better negotiator, serving the seller and teaching them why the price that they're asking is unrealistic, and because of the risks that come along, and helping them understand, that's going to really serve you well. And also getting in and out of deals quickly. I think the people that are going to get slammed in what's happening, and it's already happening right now, are syndicators. So I've been warning people for, not all syndications are bad, but there are some definite risky drivers. I've been warning people left and right that syndications require a refinance or some type of an exit at a higher price to basically be successful. And unfortunately, when pricing is coming down, that's a difficult thing. The appraisals aren't going to come in as high. You can't exit as high. So you're stuck in a deal. There's been capital calls on syndications because you are a limited partner in them. They need money. They're going to do a capital call, which dilutes your percentage of ownership if you can't make the capital call. There's been pref returns that have been just paused. So like these things are happening right now. And if you're not seeing what's coming, if you're staring in the rearview mirror of your car driving down the street, you're going to wreck. It's just a fact. You got to look out the front windshield. And I love, Dan, that's what you guys do as wholesalers. You're always looking down the road, always looking out the front window, because you have to. There's no other path. You got to see what's coming. You got to be able to negotiate what's coming into the deal today so that you can get rid of it and be on to the next deal. And I think that all serves your business well. I know you're paired up with good people. Jeremy is just in my opinion, one of the most ethical, transparent human beings in this business. And the fact that you're associated with him is why you're on this show, because I don't bring many wholesalers on this show. I just don't. I think a lot of them are just slime balls thinking, oh, this is just easy money. I'm just going to milk it until it's done. And, and that means they're screwing people out of that. And I just don't play that game, but I love that you're not playing that game. So with that being said, like where, this REI Freedom Facebook page, let's just go back to that. You got so much free stuff you're giving away, so much knowledge where somebody that's just listening to this, they can really, really get in the game. What is the best places you would like people to go so they can learn from you? Like just give them a couple sources.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our stuff, the REI Freedom Facebook page, just join that group and we can get you in there. It's completely free. There's no strings attached. There's videos on there. If not every day, every other day, but nearly every day, there's some type of video content that you can apply to your business that same day. Very simple and short. Instagram, REI Freedom Coach. You can look at that. I'm actually not a huge Instagram guy. I post my workout videos on Instagram, but I personally am not on Instagram too much. I probably need to change that. And then our podcast, the REI Freedom Podcast, of course, which is really cool as well. The REI Freedom Podcast. Outside of our scope, a book. If I had to recommend one book to get into your head ASAP, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. One of my favorite books in terms of negotiating. And obviously that's sort of my passion, is sales, negotiation, acquisitions. Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss is a book that you can get on Amazon and get that right away. It's really good. Psycho-Cybernetics as well is really good. If you're just trying to get into that mindset of being able to converse, if it's hard for you to just get out of your shell, it'll get you to that very next level. So those are a couple of recommendations that I would make just outside of our realm, if you will. So
that was a great recommendation. And the final question I'll ask is, what is one thing you are going to do going into 2024? Most important thing you're going to do into 2024?
Absolutely. Just build more creative partnerships with people that are a lot smarter than me in different areas. We've already started doing that. That rehabber I told you about, we actually just created a partnership there with again, really good rehabber friend of mine for some deals that we think had that potential, but we would do better actually bringing somebody he's a general contractor as well, and an agent. So having that partner there, it's going to become a harder time to be a lone shark in this business. You're not going to want to be doing things alone without a really strong team of people and network around you. So going into 2024, I would really like that support to be the strongest it's ever been. Having a team around me, having collaborators around me from different industries, not exactly wholesaling, but maybe, Chris, it's guys like you really good at money. It could be that. It could be people that are like general contractors, agents. But you're going to need that support going into this time. Things are not going to be as easy. And, being on an island is never a safe place to be. You want to be with a pack. And that pack should be like-minded people that are there for everyone's best interest as a team. So really blessed to have a lot of people already, but just continuing those connections, building those relationships.
Love it. Well, on that topic, let's just ask the audience, any of you listening right now in the comments, what I'd like you to do is tell us, would you like to see Dan Toback and REI Freedom working with Private Money Club so we can provide money to all of his students and all of his followers? Put that in the comments. Let's see what you guys say. And maybe if there's enough of you saying that sounds like a good idea, maybe we'll make that magic happen for 2024. With that being said, folks, thank you for joining us in this podcast. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all those happy holidays. Thank you for joining us. Dan, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, guys.